When the BMF title was first introduced, it was mostly treated as a novelty, a fun idea, a marketing hook, something built more for moments than meaning. Somewhere along the way, that seemed to have changed. The fighters first associated with it gave it credibility, but one moment gave it identity.
That's why Max Holloway is beloved. When you think about when we created the BMF, tonight totally embodied what that belt was built for.
Max didn't just win the BMF belt, he embodied the idea of it. The pace, the pressure, the willingness to stand in the fire and ask for more. He gave the belt a different gravity. And now, he puts it on the line again as he faces another guy cut from the same cloth, Charles Oliveira, the most prolific finisher in UFC history, a former champion and a fighter who also thrives in chaos.
When Charles Oliveira fights, he fights like a berserker. He puts himself in danger.
They've shared the cage before. It didn't settle much. But now, it's the perfect time to run it back. Not for a gimmick, not for nostalgia, for something as real as it gets.
É Charles completamente diferente. Igual eu falei, eu sei que ele evoluiu, eu sei que ele cresceu, é o campeão BMF, porém o Charles de hoje é Charles completamente diferente.
We have history. He's saying some things. He's saying some things that happened during the fight. We get to find out now. We get to solve it, you know. Many years later, we get to do it. We get to run it back. BMF title on the line. He claims to be a BMF, so we'll get to find out come March 7th.
But before these two legends clash, let's take an inside look into UFC 326.
You know, we gave the BMF belt some meaning because it should have, and if you have BMF, come get it.
Are there two fighters in the UFC today who are as universally beloved as Charles Oliveira and Max Holloway? Well, even a lot of die-hard fans likely had to do a double take when they saw the number 2 beside this fight. Because for as much as these veterans have been operating at the top of their game for over a decade, it's easy to forget that they actually fought before. On paper, Holloway took home the win by first-round TKO, but in reality, nothing truly notable happened in the fight up until the moment where Oliveira suffered an injury somewhere in his neck and shoulder area. We would find out later that it was a micro tear to his esophagus. Nothing too serious, thankfully, but it left the fight as a bit of a non-factor in both men's history. At UFC 326, the ceremonial BMF title will be up for grabs between these two fighters who, for all intents and purposes, will be treating this like a fresh matchup. Each man has become a champion in the time since that fight, and both of them have learned what it's like to lose that belt, to find a new home in a different division, and to face all manner of stylistic opponents inside the octagon. These guys are two living legends of an era that seems to be coming to a close. But you wouldn't count either man out from mounting another run at the belt. But only one can progress on to the next stage.
Charles Oliveira doesn't give a damn. He walks down his opponents. He's great on the feet. He's got big power. He's got excellent Muay Thai. And on the ground, he is an absolute wizard. He will just find a submission and take it. And Max Holloway, he's ready for the challenge. And that's what the BMF is all about. Call it a weird, silly, made-up title. Call it whatever you want. But this is a fight, I believe, that sells itself.
For Max, as the owner of the highest striking totals in the history of the UFC, he also has the unfortunate position of being hit more than nearly anyone else. And although he had displayed a phenomenal chin over the years, his bills were finally paid when Ilia Topuria sent his chin into the stratosphere. However, despite losing that fight, let's not lose sight of the fact that Max is 4-1 in his last 5. And in his rebound fight against Dustin Poirier, he didn't appear to be noticeably declining. His 2 recent lightweight appearances have seen him defeat Poirier and Justin Gaethje, 2 top 5 names. There's no doubt that Holloway is an elite lightweight, a guy who seems to have a little more pop on his shots up at 155 too. And up against an opponent as famously chinny as Oliveira, that could be important. Because, let's be real, Oliveira has an inhuman ability to recover and regain his composure. But dropping him to the mat can be a pretty easy way to pick up rounds and pick up momentum. He was in a pretty tough spot in his career after getting sparked unconscious by Ilia Topuria. But Charles's resilience is truly on another level, and seeing him return to action against Mateusz Gamrot with a second-round finish only served as further proof of his mettle.
Things happen in God's time. I've always said this. I figured that I needed a couple of fights to get back into the title picture. I get that great win in Rio, come out with a win. Now I have a great fight coming up. Beating Max, I think it should be next on the line. Anything can happen. It's MMA. I'm going to be hunting all the time. May not knock him out, maybe finish him, but I'm going to for sure have my arm raised.
Defending this belt is cool and all, but the end goal is the undisputed title. Charles Oliveira being a very worthy opponent, you know, he was the last one to fight for a title. He was an undisputed title holder at one point. If I can go out there, do a BMF moment again and get my hand raised, maybe we get me one step closer to the undisputed title.
This fight, for Charles, is a lot more of a do-or-die situation than it is for Holloway. Neither man is young, and both have considerable miles on their engine. But a setback for Oliveira would see him move to 3-4 in his last 7. And though it wouldn't be a death sentence, that is still definitely not the type of form you want to be hitting in your mid to late 30s. It does seem like this will be an all-action affair no matter where it takes place. Some might say that Max will hold a distinct advantage in the striking department, and Charles should have the same in the grappling. However, don't make the mistake of ruling out Oliveira's own striking intensity, how fearlessly he charges into range to attack his targets. Max is known for his volume, but he also likes to set the pace and rhythm of a fight, something that Oliveira refuses to let anyone else do.
O meu estilo de luta ele não muda, é um estilo agressivo, eu sou um cara que caça a luta o tempo inteiro. Eu acho que esse é o jogo melhor fazer contra o Max, guarda alta, movimentar, caçar a luta o tempo inteiro, tanto em pé quanto no chão. Lógico, respeitando demais ele é um cara que tem poder de fogo nas mãos, é um cara que se movimenta muito. Essa luta não vai chegar à decisão.
A BMF thing to do would probably to submit a submission artist. A lot of people, they sleep on my ground because I don't show it, you know, so maybe I get to show a little bit more ground here. You might see something new, or you might see vintage Max Holloway. We're gonna find out come March 7th.
Holloway hasn't been submitted since Dustin Poirier caught him in his UFC debut, but generally, it's quite rare to see him fight for extended periods on the ground. Chances are this fight will be contested on the feet, and both men will likely be quite happy with that. Fans should expect a scene of total chaos when this one begins, because when that opening exchange finally happens, they're not just competing for the first big moment, they're going to be tussling for the right to take the center of the octagon and dictate the bout's terms. For the winner, it's hard to imagine them overtaking the interim champion, Justin Gaethje, although both men have finished him in the past. But make no mistake, folks, this is a fight of huge significance for the division, and despite the gimmicky nature of the BMF belt, like the Holloway-Gaethje fight before it, if anyone deserves to compete for that title, it's these two.
Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira. This one will be an absolute blockbuster. And it just speaks about Max Holloway and this guy's attitude. Yes, he beat Justin Gaethje and then got knocked out against Ilia Topuria. And what's he trying to do? Is he trying to look for easy fights? Is he trying to chip off a couple of people, get a couple of easy paydays? No, he's calling out the next guy up. And every time Max Holloway fights, you know it's going to be sensational. Every time Charles Oliveira comes to the octagon, you know this is must-see TV. You know someone's getting finished one way or the other.